Hello everybody, welcome to my part 2 reaction on why Skyrim is a masterpiece of Fusdorf. I don't know how I pronounced that correctly or not, I don't know. It's a little bit stormy outside, so you're probably going to hear something in the background here and there. Hopefully not, but let's jump into it. Go and watch the first reaction, part 1, if you want to catch up, so to say. So let's just jump into it. I'm not going to talk too much because it's a half an hour more for this video, so let's just jump into it.
One of the Elder Scrolls series' biggest improvements during the production of Skyrim, from an objective standpoint, would be the level design in each and every dungeon or cave. They no longer require you to waste hours overall trying to backtrack your way through a dungeon just to exit and get on with your life. I say hours because picture how much time you've wasted overall backtracking your way out of caves and dungeons during a 200-hour playthrough of Oblivion. I would confidently say it's at least in the ballpark of 2 to 8 hours. This is
I don't remember that much from Oblivion, especially from the dungeons. I did remember they were pretty long. Some of them were like linear long, if I'm going to explain correctly. Like you have a long linear, not linear, but in a way, I don't know how to say it. Compared to Skyrim, where dungeons have a little bit more like creativity to them compared to Oblivion. Oblivion felt like you just went straight through, then all of a sudden you were done with the dungeon. You have to go track your way all the way back. It could take time compared to Skyrim, where there was kind of like a hidden corridor, tunnel where you go through, and then all of a sudden you can come up where you started. Something like that.
Is of course if you do a lot of exploring, which is exactly what the Elder Scrolls main focus is. Exploring. So I would surmise there is a high chance you did just that. Put plainly, you've wasted a lot of your time. Fortunately in Skyrim, this problem has almost completely been eradicated from its gameplay loop, by almost always having a shortcut to the exit. As I hinted at before, some hardcore fans argue this is a detriment to the game, claiming it breaks immersion by always having a quick and easy way out, right next to the main throne room, where the leader was supposed to be protected.
Not really, because if you look at, for example, castles throughout Europe, or here and there in the world, but mostly Europe as an example, or fortresses and that sort of thing, there's always a escape tunnel that leads either away from the castle or to the entrance, that sort of thing. So yeah, it makes very much sense that there's a hidden tunnel, a hidden escape route to the exit, especially if there is in the mountain or something, then yeah, there have to be. So I don't really buy that, oh, it breaks immersion. To me, it adds to immersions.
More or less making it resemble an amusement park ride rather than a heavily guarded tomb. I do not think this is the case, however. Firstly, this argument doesn't hold very much weight when considering the player themselves are a goddamn walking armory, being able to carry 300 pounds worth of weapons and armor without a single weapon or piece of armor being visible. People may even argue this feature as well, and my response to that would be to tell you straightforwardly, your opinion is misguided. You aren't even looking for an Elder Scrolls game. At no point has this feature ever been missing in the DNA of an Elder Scrolls game. Back to my main point with all of this, if you are a developer of an open world RPG, one of the main goals is to immerse the player as much as possible. But this immersion shouldn't cross over the threshold of real life immersion. Or in other words, it shouldn't suck as much ass as in real life while also being immersive enough for it to be believable. Having no shortcut exits in dungeons does not bring anything new to the plate worthwhile, when there are other more important issues with Skyrim that obviously need attention. For those of you that are much more hardcore with your Elder Scrolls games, understand this. I'm on your side, truly, but I think our critiquing efforts would be far better spent elsewhere, especially considering this is one of the main contributing factors to Skyrim's success, that being it's greatly enhancing the ease of use throughout the dungeons of Skyrim, making it more acceptable to a casual audience, which to you may be a problem in and of itself because you fear Bethesda may continue dumbing down RPG elements in an attempt to draw in more players. But I think there needs to be a compromise between casual gamers and hardcore RPG players. Further,
That's a valid point, absolutely. Yes, Elder Scrolls games has been how should we say it, far harder or complicated back in the days compared to now. Not to say that Skyrim is complicated or something like that, not really. You kind of like see some seeds of it, but yeah, I take the dungeons from Oblivion and compare it to Skyrim. I like the dungeons more in Skyrim compared to Oblivion, and the dungeon, I don't think there were dungeons in, or was it? I'm thinking back to Morrowind. I haven't played Morrowind in a decade or something, so I'm still playing Skyrim now, so maybe I'm a little bit biased here, like yearly bias, but I don't know. Yeah, I can get what they're meaning, but I just don't know. It doesn't make sense to me if they're arguing with this sort of thing. But I do agree with him that our criticism of this sort of game shouldn't be focused just on the dungeons. Like, they're not a humongous part of the game. Yes, for exploration, but for the humongous amount of the game, you're not really spending your time in the dungeons. Let's be honest about that.
Furthermore, for this argument, I can only state my opinion based on anecdotal evidence, as this is all I have to go off of. Out of thousands of hours of playtime, I just simply did not experience any immersion-breaking shortcut exits throughout Skyrim's dungeons.
Yeah, they were pretty well hidden, they were pretty well placed in a high ground or high up in the walls or that sort of thing, or have some sort of trapdoor that leads down to the exit and that sort of thing. There were a lot of creative way they made the shortcut to the exit and sort of thing. Some were well hidden, some were well not disguised, but I don't know what the word is in English. Really, I don't really know. I just gonna say they were pretty creative with the shortcuts, in my opinion.
Can, however, say I remember experiencing great frustration when trying to find my way out of dungeons in Morrowind and Oblivion, although it never deterred me from finishing the games or exploring because, well, I love the Elder Scrolls. This aside, though, I still had loads of fun role-playing in each of these games, so even if I wasn't an Elder Scrolls nerd, I would have played regardless. After loads of playtime with each title, I will confidently state Skyrim's dungeon design is the best by far, and it's not even debatable. From the aesthetics, puzzles, booby traps, even to the quests tied to them. Unsurprisingly,
I will say that yes, there's one thing that I was a little bit disappointed in when it comes to the dungeons. At the time it was released, maybe I didn't thought about it too much, but yeah, a lot of the dungeons looks the samey, and they have the same puzzles and the same enemy variety. So if it feels like all of them were built at the same time, so it didn't show like variety in ages, that sort of thing. There are mods out there that are probably fixing it, but like for example, where are the Falmers kinda designing, not Falmer, but the Snow Elves kinda dungeons, where are they, and or are these dungeons, Nordic dungeons, some of them already been built by the Snow Elves, so where are their designs here and there? So there's a little bit here and there, but that's kind of like an afterthought from the game. But yeah, even though they were creatively built here and there, like layouts, designs and that sort of thing, yeah, they could have been a little bit more different throughout ages here and there.
There are a few minor flaws I've had to face over the course of 4,500 hours of game time. After a while, they do become pretty repetitive, in particular, the Nordic dungeons. An Elder Scrolls game taking place in the province of Skyrim, which is the homeland of the Nords, having a surplus of Nordic burial sites and dungeons is really unsurprising. So naturally, it makes sense for Bethesda to try and alleviate this with adding different variations of caves and dungeons. Thankfully, I believe they did a decent job.
Yeah, like what you call them, the Dwellers. You see a lot of some remnants of the Dwellers here and there, which does add to the immersion and also add some sort of variety of the dungeons, not just Nordic dungeons and Nordic grey mounts and that sort of thing, but yeah, like the Dwemer ruins and that sort of thing. But it wasn't till like the Dawnguard DLC, I think it was, when they started to add not a lot of Falmer snow elves kind of ruins, a little bit here and there, like more specifically, but not like randomly like the Dwemer or the Nordic ruins.
By adding Dwemer ruins and different variations of caverns. This still doesn't change the fact that there are still a ton of Nordic ruins that have slight variations of puzzles, which ultimately aren't challenging at the end of the day and even become stale. Eventually, this will lead you to believe that all Nordic dungeons will bore you, because you can already predict what's about to happen a mile away.
Yeah.
You enter a Nordic crypt and fight your way through hordes of Draugr, then unlock the main throne room, only to fight a big-ass tanky Draugr boy. This is overly simplified, but in essence, not very far off. And maybe you were thinking of...
I also think it depends on the level, like, for example, in the beginning, like in early levels in there, like from what, like 5 to 20, the Nordic dungeons are pretty challenging here and there, depending on how you're building your character and what kind of weapons, and you know, if they're not legendary items and that sort of thing. But the point is that at a certain level, the Nordic ruins feels like low level, a little bit too low levels. Like you can walk in like at level 50 and all of a sudden you can just one hit everything and just steamroll throughout everything. I think it would be better if they had some sort of system where it, well, they have that in Skyrim, like the environment level up with you in sort of way. I do know they have that, but it feels like the dungeons could have that a little bit extra buff, if you know what I'm meaning, like an extra buff to the strength, that sort of thing, where depending what level you are.
Of course my experience is like this. I've played the game so much, and you could very well be correct. It's only in recent years that this opinion has started to slowly grow on me. Maybe it's because I've gotten older and have thousands of hours of playtime. It could also be that I've played newer games with much more variety and have applied...
I'm currently, I reinstalled Skyrim because I want to play it again, and also I'm going to download some mods in there because without them there's... But yeah, I love vanilla Skyrim, absolutely. I already played some time with it, but I want to play with mods right now. When it comes to Witcher, I haven't played that in a year maybe, but maybe 2 years since the pandemic, I remember. Oh, I love The Witcher. It's such a good game. Oh.
Apply this mindset to a decade-old game. Who really knows? But what I do know, this isn't a major issue at the end of the day. I still play Skyrim now and again and have a blast. Something that's greatly aided and worsened this problem is the enemy variety. There are plenty of different wild animals and creatures out in the wilderness, and this extends into the caves and caverns of Skyrim, which is great, but in Nordic dungeons, it's by and large mostly Draugr, which herein lies our problem. While it's great having lots of wildlife to battle in different caves, and coupled with this, it's mixed with bandits every now and again. In Nordic dungeons, it's only Draugr. I literally do not remember any other enemy-varying dungeons besides Mount Kilcreath and the Break of Dawn Daedric quests, where you fight corrupted skeletons, and the other dungeon being Skaldafn, which has a very unique level design, combining hordes of dragons with hordes.
Which dungeon was that with the skeleton dragon? I think you have to do the Thief Guild quest to get it. Yeah, the variety of enemies in the Nordic dungeons, I can understand it with the Draugrs. When I'm thinking like folklore, like Scandinavian folklore, sure, Draugr was an actual folklore thing. People were worried that the dead would rise from the graves, and all of a sudden they will come out from revenge. If they die in murder, that sort of thing, so they will come back for revenge. That's why you see in Nordic burial burrows, I think you're calling, you can see that they have done some weird ritual, like turning the bodies in maybe three times, and bending the swords and destroying the shields, because they are worried that the dead will rise and use those weapons to go on a rampage, basically. So yeah, Draugr was a real thing, not the actual real thing, but like a folklore thing back in the days. But I'm also trying to think what kind of other kind of folklore from the dead when it comes to the Scandinavian folklore. There are some, but like dead animals and that sort of thing probably. But I don't know what I would add to a Nordic dungeon or ruin in Skyrim. Possibly animals like wolf would be actually pretty immersive, because you know wolves have always been around for a long time. Dogs as well, like tame dogs and sort of thing, in Scandinavia and probably in Skyrim as well. But what else? Maybe like they did with the dragon, have some sort of bear or that sort of thing. They kind of like have a bear that's been slain by this specific draugr and been placed there as a kind of trophy or something like that. There's a lot of weird, a lot of things you can add to it. But yeah, I can agree that the draugr was a little bit too overused. To be honest, even back in the day, I was like, man, this is the only draugr. The only time I feel like, man, this is cool, was the Dragon Lords or something they were called, and then the draugrs, and then the one dungeon with the dragon skeleton, and yeah, those wraiths kind of things, like the ghost.
Words of Draugr, which hasn't been applied to any other dungeon. I can think of a handful of dungeons that I have grown tired of completely, and every time I play through them, it makes me roll my eyes and almost puts me to sleep. These are also attached to quests, which is an entirely different problem that we've already covered. I'm going to name these dungeons and quests off the top of my head, so watch and listen carefully, because I'm sure most of you will memorize at least one of these.
Oh, okay, here we go. Oh, my knowledge of Skyrim. Come on now, don't let me down.
Mount Kilcreath, quest name.
Immediately. Yeah. No, not Asura. Man, what was it called again? The Dawnbreaker. You get the Dawnbreaker sword. Yes, this dungeon is pretty boring. Like every time I get that Meridia, that's her name. The Meridian light ball or whatever. I was like, here we go again.
The Break of Dawn, Full Gunther, Sarfall.
Yeah, that's the one we found Magnus Eye or something, right, from the college. It would have been much more better if they designed because this is Sarfall. This is like one of the first actual settlements the Admorans established when they came from Admora. And this was like kind of like the central hub for the Admorans at the time. Like it was kind of like a fortress. It was explained underground, that sort of thing. But when you go down there, it's like it's just another Nordic dungeon. Where are the Admoran stuff? Like the Admoran carvings and Admoran architecture. So it's a little bit a shame in sort of way that they didn't utilize that more, kind of like give us an insight of the Admorans architecture and philosophy sort of thing, like in Sarfall.
And Jeremy's Hall, all attached to the Forbidden Legend quests. And lastly, Ustengrav.
That's the one with you get from Delphin, right? I like the ending of that. It kind of like feels like you're in the Chamber of Secrets with all that. I think there were snake heads coming up from the water, something like that. I liked the ending of it. The last throne room, so to say. It was actually pretty cool, but the rest was just another Nordic dungeon. Like, come on.
Quest name: The Horn of Jurgen Windcaller, which is a mandatory quest to continue the main storyline to defeat Alduin. These are my top most hated dungeons. I try to avoid these for as long as possible because of how badly I hate them. In my opinion, they are the most tiring, monotonous, irritating quests and dungeons in the entirety of the game. On the plus side, Skyrim did add dragons to the Elder Scrolls, which did shake things up in a good way, sort of keeping you on the edge of your seat whenever one shows up, making things more difficult to predict.
I remember the first time I was like slaying dragons here and there. I just felt like, man, are these dragons are so easy. Like, what the hell's going on? It's probably that I was leveling up super fast, and common dragons, if you want to call them, were pretty easily eventually. Like level 24 something, you will just dominate them. But then all of a sudden there was like a new dragon depending on your level. All of a sudden I was like, man, all of these dragons are so easy. Then I got to the legendary dragons. I was like, okay, this is tough. So yeah, I like that when it came to the dragons. They were different variety, and they will increase in their strength and health. What more? Maybe size, depending on what level you are. And I liked that. That was pretty cool to have. Like, it was just here I was walking on with my armor and that sort of thing, and all of a sudden I hear a dragon. I was, oh man, I guess I can kill it and get my goddamn shout, and all of a sudden it's a legendary dragon. I was like, oh, I've never seen that one before. Killed me instantly. I was like, what the?
They are a nice little...
After that, I was like, I was paranoid. I was like, oh, I hear a dragon somewhere.
cherry on top of the enemy variety. Undeniably, the most contentious aspect of Skyrim was the complete redesign of the skill and leveling system, regardless of what...
I still think the skill system and the perks here in Skyrim is one of the best level system Bethesda's done. I can live with Fallout 4's perk system. The Starfield was terrible in my opinion. I just do not like Fallout 76. Also hated that perk system. I hate the current day perk system. It's so boring and so dumbed down. Like, the level system in Oblivion and Morrowind, especially Skyrim, are really good.
What people's opinions on the topic are. Aside from Bethesda's heavy advertisement campaign, this is the biggest gameplay aspect that made Skyrim renowned in the first place. So moving forward in discussing this, that fact must be kept in mind. During Skyrim's production, Bethesda understood the restrictiveness the class system placed on the player, and Oblivion and Morrowind at the very beginning of the game was a major turnoff for most people. And since Bethesda is passionate about player freedom in the Elder Scrolls games, the class and attributes system was next for the chopping block. That's when Skyrim introduced skill perks and perk points to the Elder Scrolls, making it your choice to use any skill at any given moment to level it up, giving you experience points toward your overall character level, which in turn, at each new level increase, your character will be rewarded a perk point, which then could be invested into the desired skill tree by the player. Upon reaching level 100 in a skill tree, you will then have the option of turning that skill into a legendary skill, or simply leave it alone. If you do, however, turn a skill legendary, you will be refunded all the perk points spent in that skill tree back to the player. Essentially, you can continue leveling your character's main level by still using that same skill. All you would have to do is turn it into a legendary skill, rinse and repeat. It's not as simple as that, but that's the gist of it. So there you have it, Skyrim's a new leveling system in a nutshell. On paper, this sounds good, but in action, I think it's amazing. Having this kind of flexibility in a video game is unheard of, which is why this
Oh wow, that was a good shot, straight to the heart.
change from Oblivion to Skyrim catapulted Skyrim into the stratosphere of some of the most widely known video games out there. So that may leave you wondering why there is so much debate around this change. In Oblivion, each time your character leveled up, you were able to increase your attributes. Some people believe the attributes were totally removed in Skyrim.
I don't remember how the level system in Kingdom Come Deliverance was, but I actually liked that one as well. I think it was a little bit like Oblivion, if I remember correctly. Not entirely. But yeah, the leveling system, as I said, in Oblivion or Morrowind, they were fine. Like, in my opinion, they were just fine. I didn't really care that much about it, but when Skyrim came out and the leveling system and that sort of thing, I was interested. I was like invested in it.
therefore stripping your player choices down. I have to disagree with this, however, as they are still there essentially. They are just spread out and leveled up through different means. Irritatingly though, I do see what some people mean when saying role-playing options are weakened when you can't start the game with some attribute options invested into any of the skills, as this could tie up loose ends.
I feel that they should have some sort of option for the next Elder Scrolls to have some sort of system where, do you want to play like in Skyrim with the leveling system and with the perks and skills and that sort of thing, or do you want to play like classes? Like, do you want to be a thief? Do you have, and you can only do thief skills and thief's perks and that sort of thing throughout the entire game, and you can not cast magic and that sort of thing if you're a thief or something. I feel like they should have that option. I can get both sides here, that they want to have like a class system, because I do also want a class system because it's really fun here and there, but it's a little bit here and there. But I would say, why not just put in a 2 system here, just to get rid of this debate once and for all.
Ends at the beginning of the game. If you wanted to roleplay as a powerful mage crossing the border, you could have some attributes boosted, just like in the Fallout games. I would say Skyrim has more skills to choose from, but that just isn't true. Bethesda decided to remove some skills altogether and simplify others by putting them in the same skill tree. First, let's get the removed skills out of the way. The skills that are worth mentioning would be acrobatics, athletics, and medium armor, which the medium armor skill was removed in Oblivion, but I'm still salty about it. While it can be loads of fun running around super fast in Oblivion and Morrowind, it's obviously out of place. If your character can outrun a horse, there's a major problem, because then, to compensate, devs would have to increase horse speed. Therefore, it was a great decision, in my opinion, to get rid of it entirely. Not to mention with Skyrim's more immersive animation, it's very hard to picture your character running super fast. Actually, we don't have to picture. Now, with the removal of the medium armor skill tree, I can definitely see why people would be frustrated, as I myself am with you. I never have been able to wrap my head around the removal of this skill. Even as a child playing Skyrim, this seemed very odd. A very rudimentary example would be fur or leather as light armor, different types of chainmail for medium armor, and of course, plate for heavy. This design choice still baffles me to this day, and I really hope in Elder Scrolls 6 we see a return of the medium armor skill line. There are other skills.
Oh yeah, I never thought about it. Well, I have, but do I want light and medium skills? Well, that would be, yeah, why not? Well, I not. I remember back in the day there was some sort of armor skill debate back in the days about light and medium. It went on for some while, but it kind of died off.
That were removed, but were actually merged together under one skill name. So I don't really see a problem with this change. Of course, there are some obvious gripes any Skyrim player could smell immediately coming into this video, as it's extremely low-hanging fruit, and that's the uselessness of some skills. Sometimes you have to unlock useless
lockpick. I pretty much never invested any perks to the lockpicking. No.
skills just to get to the one you wish to have, making you waste perk points. For example, lockpicking and speechcraft. These are really a waste of your perk points, as they don't add.
I think I have invested in speechcraft like very few times, like only because of that haggling skill. That it's kind of like the only thing.
Value to the game. Besides being able to sell items for a higher price if you have the correct skill check unlocked. But as I said before, this is utterly useless when gold is not hard to come by already. As for lockpicking, it's in the same situation as speechcraft, because you'll have lockpicks out the ass by level 20, completely undermining the skill as a whole. With useless skills out of the way, we can move on to the absurdly broken skills in Skyrim. Sneaking. With a maxed out sneaking level, you can completely break all immersion on idiotic levels. And I do think this is due for a major change. I don't exactly know how Bethesda could do it, but the best idea I've come up with to remedy the situation, and I'm sure others have as well, is to make a detection purely based on line of sight, and I would say to completely remove it from the skill tree altogether. Think of it like gravity in a video game. It's an objective force of nature. No matter what you do, it will always act the same way. Sneaking could be handled the exact same way. If you're crouched out in the open, enemies see you. If you're crouched behind a wall, they can't. If you walk too fast behind a wall, enemies can hear you. Or if you're wearing heavy armor, you have to be extra careful. Along with this, of course, if you are in the shadow,
I would say the best sneaking probably win. As I said, Stormy outside. The best sneaking system I ever witnessed in a video game, Kingdom Come Deliverance. I absolutely love that game when it comes to, like, if you want to role play as a thief. Like, it's so good. Like, you have to train your character to become better and better over time, and as as the time goes by and you have invested perks and that sort of thing and skills and become better with your sneak skills, you can literally steal anything. And you, even though you are like a super, how should I say it, a super skilled thief, you can still like do screw ups. Like, you just have to watch out for a lot of things. You have to train your character like very tensely, very. I can't explain it. I just can't. You have to witness it for yourself. Buy Kingdom Come Deliverance. Play the game.
You are harder to detect, etc. For an honorable mention, I will say the archery skill could be balanced a lot better, but the sneaking skill is really the crux of the issue by adding damage multipliers for foolish amounts of damage per sneak attack. Smithing in Skyrim is another skill that is incredibly imbalanced, as there are more than a few exploits to speed level to 100, and have access to the best armor in the game by level 20 if you really wanted to. I suppose smithing in and of itself isn't the issue. It's just embarrassingly balanced by Bethesda. You cannot convince me Bethesda wasn't aware of the Iron Dagger exploit when shipping the game. It's patched now, but boy oh boy was it horrendous. By far some of the worst changes Bethesda has made is in regards to magic in Skyrim. I'll say quite candidly, comparing the use of magic in Skyrim to all of its predecessors makes Skyrim look really lame. This is especially painful for me, as being a mage is something I tend to lean toward in these types of games. Yet another bizarre decision by Bethesda was completely tearing out spellmaking. I'm not quite sure why this decision was made, but it was absolutely an abysmal.
Yeah. Oh, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, spellmaking was actually really funny in Oblivion. Yeah, I don't know why they removed that in Skyrim, but hopefully they don't do that same screw up for the next
decision. Spellmaking was a huge distinguishing factor that magic users could utilize. Completely gutting spellcrafting quite literally almost killed mage builds for me, utterly destroying role-playing aspects to being a magic user. Fortunately, it isn't all doom and gloom, however. Playing as a mage is still fun. They managed to pull off other aspects to satisfy my craving to playing as a wizard, making the spell effects cool to look.
I'm more like because it's Skyrim, and I'm Scandinavian. I have in my blood that you either a two-handed sword or axe, or one-handed axe or sword. I'm basically a fighter in every sort of fantasy game. But mages, I practically almost never roleplay as a wizard or something. It's very, very rare that I myself do it. I like to be a fighter. I like to be not a barbarian kind of fighter, but you know, just a typical fighter. Like, I don't want to be leaning too much on the two-handed or too much on the one-handed and shields, that sort of thing. I like to be a little bit more like diverse when it comes to my melee weapons and archer and that sort of thing. I like to invest in as much weaponry kind of skills as possible, even though it may be costing on the either damage or armor or what you call now, acrobatics, whatever. So yeah, even if it cost me that sort of skills, I still would like to learn more about the melee weapons, all kinds of it, compared to like just one. But wizard skills and that sort of thing, never really my thing. I don't know why. Maybe I'm not just a wizard kind of person.
Look at.
Except for Harry Potter.
Hooray! Although the magic fighting combat can be a bit wonky, with people just holding out their hands trying to roast each other alive. It just looks stupid. We've only talked about skills and perks up to this point, so I guess this is the time to address the awful combat loop. Arguably one of Bethesda's biggest shortcomings is the combat itself. It's all quite bland with nothing really special happening. Skyrim did spice things up with the use of shouts, but even then I feel Skyrim is too much of a hack and slash. I'm not saying Bethesda needs to design combat as engaging as Elden Ring's or anything. Actually, I'd argue the contrary. I do not think Elder Scrolls combat needs to be overly complex in the slightest. A trait that makes the Elder Scrolls games magical in their own way is their simplicity. It's always heartwarming to see elderly people comment on videos.
Grandma. I heard that they are actually implement a character based on her in the next Elder Scrolls. I'm looking forward to that. Whoever it is, I want to know.
Or even make videos about how much they love Skyrim and what it means to them. And this applies.
She's also an absolute example on Skyrim. This sort of game, all kind of people likes it. It doesn't matter your age or skin color, whatever your culture. Skyrim, a lot of people like Skyrim, that's the thing.
To people that may be disabled as well. I see Elder Scrolls almost as an art form. Everyone interprets these games in their own way, and I believe all gamers should be able to experience these games without difficult mechanics being in the way. However, this is no excuse for boring, uninteresting combat that is too simplistic. I would love to see an Elder Scrolls 6 with different enemies and varying weaknesses. Take the Spriggan, for example. It's one of the few enemies in all of Elder Scrolls that requires a little bit of strategy.
I hate them. Yeah. I do hate them. They are quite irritating, well, annoying, but here and there, especially if you don't know where you are and all of a sudden they just appear. They do have a lot of interesting combat. I don't know how to say it. Like you can't get too close to them because you're going to get hurt and your health is going to go down pretty fast. And the more they are, the more faster their health is going down, because I think they have some sort of aurora or something like that beasts, I don't know, that are protecting them in certain areas, and they are always charging you. They are always going to charge you, and they are going to use some sort of, I don't know, spell or something on you to drain your health even more. So yeah, they can screw up you pretty fast if there are multiple of them, and they do have a lot of health as well. And not only that, was it the Spriggan or the firing Spriggan? I don't remember what it's called. When you kill them, they would rise again. Like you have to kill them twice over for them to actually die.
Strategic thinking to take them down. Upon getting their health low too slowly, they will kneel down and become very tanky while regenerating health. Once players learn this, then forth, they will always remember that rushing Spriggans is the best way to take them out as quickly as possible. Well, what if in Elder Scrolls 6, not only is this one of their abilities, but they also are highly weak to fire spells, causing immense damage and kind of bypassing their health regeneration sequence. Or even, since they are made of tree roots, a battle axe enchanted with fire will do even more damage, allowing you to quickly dissect these formidable foes. This could also tie back into my idea for sneaking early.
Good. Those are good points and ideas, absolutely.
Maybe humans that are not adept in magical powers cannot detect players that are using invisibility spells or potions, but skilled wizards can. Furthermore, due to some magical nature abilities, Spriggans can also always detect your presence by stepping on the soil or vegetation, causing a disturbance in nature. Therefore, invisibility tricks will never work on Spriggans. But think outside of the box here, Bethesda. These kinds of weaknesses and variations could apply to almost any enemy, if you think about it hard enough. In the following year, after
Oh god, here we go.
for the release of Skyrim, Bethesda developed 3 DLC or download.
Dawn Guard I really liked because you get your Elder Scrolls waifu. The story of it, it's okay. I like the ads. They are adding much more to the snow elves and Falmer and that sort of thing. But the whole idea of the, by the way, this is spoiler. That the vampires want to block out the sun so they can go out in the world. But the thing is, if they block out the sun for too long, everything is going to die. Like the flowers will die, and when the flowers dies or vegetation dies out, the animals will die out, and like deers and that sort of thing. And when they die, the predator animal dies, and also humans will also have a much harder way to find food, and it's going to, and also because of the agriculture stuff, whatever, vegetables need, what do you call it, photosynthesis, and they need that to grow the vegetables. They need the animals for meat. So basically everything dies without the sun. You need the sun to sustain everything. And then when the humans die, the vampire will have nothing to eat, so they will die. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So that was my biggest complaint about the Dawn Guard's main quest. So I was like, have they thought it through? Maybe. Heartfire. It's a good DLC where you can build your own house and here and there, and also you can adopt children. I liked it. That was a pretty good add-on. Dragon Ball, I love that DLC. That is a good DLC. Solstheim was a perfect place for it. I love Mirak. He is a really cool character in sort of way, but he isn't. He's kind of like Voss. Like, he's a cool character, but he's used so little. Like, come on, a little bit more.
Downloadable content, really only Hearthfire being a content pack, and the other 2 being real DLC expansions. That being Dawn Guard and Dragonborn. I would insult the Hearthfire DLC, but I just learned it originally cost $5 back in 2011, and it actually left me shocked. I mean, the Horse Armor DLC in Oblivion cost $2.50, and it only added horse armor. Oh, side note here, there is a high likelihood that that little horse armor DLC paved the way for future DLCs and more predatory microtransactions, all the way back in 2006, but that's a video for another day, so I digress. The Hearthfire DLC, being the least interesting DLC, allowed players to purchase property and build homes on that property. Also, it implemented the option of adopting children, not really that bad of a DLC considering the price point. Dawn Guard, being the first DLC for Skyrim, added the option of becoming a vampire. Along with this, Dawn Guard also added a skill line for being a werewolf, since it already didn't have one, and being a vampire lord also allows you to invest skill points into its skill tree. I could drone on about this DLC for another 10 minutes, but I feel I don't really have to. Dawn Guard is a solid expansion introducing all new lore for vampires and expanding on the story of the Falmer, which of course were revealed to be snow elves. As I said before, the storyline Dawn Guard added I thought was fantastically written, also adding Serana, which I personally think is one of the best characters in all of Elder Scrolls. The Dragonborn DLC is where things get really interesting. Costing only $20, just like the Dawn Guard DLC, the Dragonborn DLC is clearly the most bang for your buck, adding in a whole new continent to explore. Well, not really new, as we've been able to explore Solstheim before, all the way back in Morrowind in the Blood Moon DLC. But don't misunderstand me, Dragonborn added a whole ton of new things to explore and do, with loads of new locations, quest lines, and weapons and armor. Certainly worth every penny. I especially love this DLC, as I'm a huge fan of Dunmer culture, and it's really neat seeing their architecture.
When it comes to the Dwemer, not the Dwemer, the Dark Elves cultures and sort of thing, I never understood it. I was like, I probably said it before, I'm more like the Nords. I don't care about thinking, I don't care about your philosophy. What I want to do it right now, like get my hands dirty. Like, let's, instead of just talking, let's do it. So, well, you know, Scandinavian, we are a little bit like that. Like, we wanna screw the talking. We need to do it.
With a whole new coat of paint, as the last time we saw it was in Morrowind 20.
But I will say yes, the Dunmer, that's the name. The Dunmer culture and that sort of thing. Some of them are really cool. I like the whole government system they have after the tribunal. I like the houses and that sort of thing, and the politics and the backs and the scheming and that sort of thing. But my problem with the Dunmer is their culture. I never understood the philosophy of some of those who follow the Vivek, I think they was called. That whole philosophy, it's just, I don't care. Norge.
Years ago. In addition to this, Bethesda decided to make the main storyline revolve around the first ever Dragonborn, teaming up with the Daedric prince, Hermaeus Mora. In reality, however, Miraak turns out to be the servant of Daddy Mora, so you almost end up feeling bad for the guy. My most favorite addition with the Dragonborn expansion would have to be the expanded lore on Hermaeus Mora. Easily one of my most favorite Daedric princes, while still kept mostly...
If I would choose a Daedric prince that I like, Hermaeus Mora is a really good, really well written character for the Elder Scrolls universe. Azura, not really. That's the little bit problem with the Elder Scrolls, especially Skyrim, that a lot of the other Daedric princes doesn't get too much attention. Like we have like the Sheogorath. No, is he called Sheogorath? Sheogorath. I like the character, but it feels like we only get like one small thing with him, small quest. I would have liked it a little bit more like in the Elder Scrolls Online, where we meet him here and there throughout our journeys, compared to just in Skyrim, where we only see him once. It would have been a little more fun like that. Sanguine, we got a quest for. It's actually a really fun one, actually. So, but it didn't like dwell into it too much about his realm and what he do, except for drunkenness and the depravity and that sort of thing. More like Ball was unfortunately a little bit too boring side quest. I think more like Ball deserves a little bit more. How should I say it? Time. I don't know. Screen time, if you want to call it like that. I think they missed a little bit of that opportunity in Dawnguard. Like, why couldn't we have like communicated with more like Ball? Like maybe the Harkon would have some sort of communication with him and that sort of thing. That would be adding a little bit more to cooler, and also a little bit more explanation to the sun power and that sort of thing. Hersing is kind of like my. It's a little bit more favorite to mine because werewolf guy and that sort of thing. I like the werewolf lore. I like he's kind of like small rivalry with the Sheogorath and that sort of thing. They have been at odds with one another throughout the ages. So yeah, Hersing is one of those I like. I don't consider him to be too evil or too good. He's a little bit in the middle compared to maybe Azura, who's more like towards the more good compared to evil, and you have more like Ball, who's just all evil. Then you have like him, man, I forgot his name. The Daedric prince from Oblivion. I don't. What was his name? I don't remember exactly. Anyway, also really evil, and Sheogorath also up and down. He can. It's kind of like going up and down constantly because he's the prince or the god of madness and that sort of thing. And you also have that god. I should say prince, but the prince who has that dog who can grant you wishes, but there's a twist to it always. So he had a really charming quest, in my opinion, with the talking dog, Barbas, I think it was called. Man, there's a lot of Daedric princes. that Periat, something like that, the plague god or something like that. Oh, there is a small quest for it in Skyrim, but it's really boring. Like, and also it's really small. Like you have to just gather some ingredients to create a new plague or something. I don't remember exactly. I only remember it was a really small quest. I was like, it doesn't deserve my time compared to the quest with Shirogorov or even Hermes Moro. So yeah, there's so many, so I can.
Mysterious, you get to learn a lot more than you would have known without the DLC. Not to mention, being able to travel to his plane of oblivion through black books was a great touch.
Absolutely.
I still have very fond memories exploring Solstheim for the first time back in 2012 as a young kid.
Those goddamn dust things, I don't remember what they were called, ash walkers or something. So goddamn irritating, absolutely irritating.
The Dragonborn DLC is undoubtedly one of my most favorite out of any game, and if you haven't played it already, you are really missing out.
Oh, okay, here we go.
By far one of the most essential ingredients to any form of media, video games, movies, even TV shows.
I would say like this, when it comes to the soundtrack and the music in Skyrim, I consider them to be the top of the top. Like, when I think about a good, awesome music, Jurassic Park, I love that theme, I love the music. Star Wars also, I mean, most of these music themes and pieces and masterpieces, in my opinion, have been either written by or made by John Williams, who's absolutely amazing when it comes to music. Hans Zimmer and that sort of thing, absolutely amazing. And yeah, I don't think there's like video game out there where I remember and I can listen to the music constantly and just either because they're so good and just all in a way inspiring. And Skyrim is one of them. It's like I said it before, I can walk a long time outside, like take very long walks and listen to Skyrim music, especially like when you're just out in the nature in Skyrim and you hear that music, this calm, awesome music, and it's so good. 10 fucking out of 10. And I don't know, there's not a single video game except maybe Dragon Age and Mass Effect that's been like where I remember the music as well. But Skyrim, it's up there. Like, the music is so good.
Is the music. Music is awfully greatly underappreciated and overlooked when it comes to movies or games. But in my opinion, I find it to be one of the most essential components when it comes to filming or creating a believable world. When I hear any musical piece from Star Wars, I immediately attach it to an emotional scene from the movies. I sincerely do not think Star Wars would be as iconic if it didn't have one of the most talented musical composers to exist on the planet behind the musical scores made for the movies. John Williams. And the same opinion I have towards that also applies to the Elder Scrolls. Jeremy Soule was born for the role of creating Elder Scrolls music. Or put another way, he was the perfect glove that fit the series. No matter...
I don't remember exactly, but he's not going to do the next Elder Scrolls music because there was some argument, I think it was. I don't remember exactly, but there was something some sort of argument between him and Bethesda. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, Jeremy, genius, absolute genius.
No matter which Elder Scrolls game, Mr. Soule could always not only do the job, but exceed all expectations in the process, writing some of the best scores I've heard for any video game to date. Jeremy Soule's ability to distract you by hypnotizing you to look over a cliff and just stare at Skyrim's beautiful mountain ranges is downright scary. No matter the musical piece, it always perfectly matches the tone of the atmosphere, no matter the environment. Whoever decides to implement music at these specific places is also a genius. I commend and respect you. Some songs are oddly neutral in feeling as well. I've listened to some tracks, and the song would have an overwhelmingly beautiful melancholic sound to it. Then other days, I would listen to the same song in a good mood, and it would have the opposite effect. It's abundantly clear Jeremy Soule has managed to capture lightning in a bottle when it comes to composing the Elder Scrolls music. With all this said, unfortunately, it looks like Jeremy Soule will not be composing the musical score for the Elder Scrolls 6 after some sort of legal troubles and accusations, and I don't know how any of that turned out.
Oh yeah, it was the sexual assault. That was the thing. Wasn't this during the time of the Me Too or something? I don't remember exactly, but yeah. I always said it when it comes to these sexual assault accusations. I gotta say, if you don't have proof, if you're just throwing words around, I don't believe you. I'm sorry, but I just do not believe your tears and that sort of thing. I need DNA proof. I need pictures. I need videos. I need solid hard rock proof before I can actually believe you. I'm sorry, but that's just me, maybe.
And Jeremy has seemingly dropped off the face of the earth. Dreadfully, it isn't looking very hopeful. With each passing year, we are headed...
Which is sad, like, as I said, he's a genius when it comes to music. Absolute genius, but... Unfortunately, this sort of stuff happens, so... I don't know. I just don't know. As I said, if this was an accused without proof and he's just gone... and he's not doing anything more, that's just in a way a tragedy for music. But if it's actually proven, then yes, I will condemn him for that, but I still think I can still separate the art from the artist. Absolutely. It's kind of like the same when people think about J.K. Rowling and her trans what was it, controversy with the trans argument and that sort of thing, which a lot of people can say, those who are Harry Potter fans can say, yeah, I can definitely split between the art and the artist. Absolutely I can. And some who, they just can't. But I can say this, if it was proven that he did sexual harassment, that sort of thing, or whatever, yes, I can separate the art from the artist completely. I can condemn him for that. But as long as there's no actual hardcore proof, then I'm sorry, I'm not standing on that side.
Closer and closer to the Elder Scrolls 6's release, and the chances of Jeremy composing the score is only getting lower and lower. Thankfully, not all hope is lost, as it seems likely Enon Zur will be composing the Elder Scrolls music until further notice. Enon is also one of the most skilled film and video game composers, being the artist responsible behind the soundtracks for the Fallout games, Dragon Age, and Bethesda's newest unreleased IP coming out this year, Starfield.
Yeah, I don't know if he did all music to Dragon Age, to all of the games. If it was for the first Dragon Age Origin, then yeah, absolutely, he's then the music is secure, because the music in Dragon Age Origin is really cool and really good. And then you have the Starfield. I'm gonna say, yeah, it's really good music in Starfield as well. But compared to Skyrim, sorry, Skyrim just smacked them all down whenever they're trying. So I would say the music is in good hands for now, because as I said, he's pretty experienced. So yeah, the music is in safe hands.
Alas, we don't know what any of his Elder Scrolls pieces will sound like, right? Well, actually, we do, and it's looking, or rather sounding, very promising. Here are a few pieces from the Elder Scrolls Blades and from the Elder Scrolls 6 trailer.
I haven't played Elder Scrolls Blades because I wasn't interested, which is weird. I was like, I saw a trailer for it. I think I have tried it, but I wasn't so invested in it, so I just quit it. Because it's a mobile game, right? I don't remember exactly everything. The only thing I remember is that I might have played. I don't remember. It sounds really good though. It does sounds really good. When this was revealed, I mean, the world stopped. I think it's pretty much been confirmed that this is going to be northern part of Hammerfell. Question is if it's going to be the entirety of Hammerfell. No, I don't think so. I think it's going to be mainly northern Hammerfell, partially a little bit of the High Rock. Maybe kind of like the entire bay, kind of like a little bit like Daggerfall in sort of way, but a little bit more with the Hammerfell. But it's going to be very interesting. The question is when it's taking place, like after the events of Skyrim or even before. I hope it's after, because I don't like when we go back in time to witness things that's already been told. I like to move forward. I don't like to be like, oh yeah, I always read about this in the books, now I'm witnessing it. Sure, it's history, I love history, but come on. I want something new here.
If Jeremy Soule really doesn't come back, and it's likely he won't, Enon Zur will do a good job as he always does. But will he be able to do the masterful job Jeremy was always able to pull off time and time again?
It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be real hard. As I said, I love the Fallout music. I love the Starfield music. But it's just not comparable with Skyrim. It's really, really hard to smack it down. It's really hard. It's gonna be a challenge. But I'm gonna say it, at least I think it's going to be pretty good.
The question remains unanswered until we get our hands on the game. Nevertheless, with Jeremy's absence, he has left some enormous shoes that Mr. Zur will have to try and fill. And if he can't, it would be a severe loss to the Elder Scrolls. Admittedly, I'm very skeptical if Enon can successfully fulfill the task at which he's been given. So I imagine stress would be at an all.
I don't think he's going to be able to, as I said, I don't think he's going to be able to overthrow Soule's music, but I think he's going to make the next Elder Scrolls music in an acceptable. Like, they're going to be good. It's going to be really awesome to listen to, but it's not going to be as hypnotizing as Soule's Skyrim music is.
All-time high. With all that said, however, I'm trying to remain as open-minded and optimistic as possible. I'm just worried Enon may not be able to capture the dragon, as Jeremy Soule would put it. It's hard to wrap my mind around another composer writing music as magical as Jeremy did. Can Enon do it? Only time will tell. It's not disputable that the modding community is one of the biggest reasons, if not the biggest reason, the Elder Scrolls games have been able to stand the test of time for so long. Humorously, I've seen some people claim that modding is the only reason the Elder Scrolls flourished in the first place.
No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Sure, for its survival for a long time, yes, the modding is a big answer to it, but for its success initially, absolutely not. No.
This statement is about as brain dead as an Oblivion NPC, but it is true, modding is the main reason these games remain so popular to this date. Even Daggerfall being 27 years old isn't stopping people from modding it to Oblivion, pun intended, to make it easier on the eyes. From the standpoint of a moron such as myself, it would seem Bethesda understands the benefit of the modding community deeply, which is why they strive so hard to make their games accessible, and their reluctance to switch to a different engine. Providing the creation kit to modders is a brilliant tactic to keep their games alive for prolonged periods of time. I must confess to you guys, I don't have any knowledge when it comes to writing code for a game, nor have I ever made a mod for a game, so I'm not going...
I tried make a mod back in 2012 or something like a year after the release, because I was also studying a little bit of the what do you call it, IT knowledge and that sort of thing. It was just something I dropped immediately. I was like, no, I'm not that good at it. I'm more like a painter, so that sort of thing. I like to paint and I like to build and that sort of thing, but computer wise, no, not my thing. But yeah, for those who can, oh my god, you're creative as hell.
Going to argue Todd Howard's point that switching to a different engine is a bad idea. I don't know this to be the case, and I feel most people that are
like moving it to the Unreal Engine, that sort of thing. I have said it before, I think the Creation Engine, even though they have updated it for Starfield, and it's probably going to be used for the next Elder Scrolls 6, it goes back and forth. Sure, I like the Creation Engine, it has its charms, but it's very limited. It does have a lot of faults, and it's kind of like, even though they have upgraded, it still feels a little bit outdated compared to the game engines, like for example Unreal Engine, which is just you can't beat it as of yet. You can't beat it. It's a hard question here and there. It's a hard decision, like stick with the Creation Engine or move it. If they move it to another engine, it's going to be much more hard to mod, but it's a hard question. It's a hard decision as well.
Argue it, don't actually know either. But I do know if Bethesda loves their modders as much as they claim, maybe it isn't the greatest idea to switch engines, whereas switching engines may greatly impact the lifespan of their games. I'm only offering you an alternative theory that's contrary to popular belief. Instead of being so brazen about your opinion, make sure you've considered all possible pros and cons of the situation and be as objective as possible. As of right now, it's quite trendy to try your hardest to only shit on Bethesda, rightfully so, rather than contemplating their decision to tweak the already existing engine to hopefully have more ease of use. And I'm not saying I agree with their decision, but I don't think the engine hate is completely justifiable. The only way I'll be convinced they need to switch engines is if Starfield has obvious flaws that are deeply ingrained because of the engine issue.
It didn't have, I think this video came out a couple of months ago, so we now have our first-hand experience with Starfield. I have done a review on it as well. As I said, the engine, sure, it feels upgraded, but it feels like it's not comparable with the other engines like Unreal or even the Frostbite engine. It's not built for this sort of stuff, like exploring an entire planet, that sort of thing. It's just not built for it. I'm so divided in myself. Like I can't choose. I need a democratic voice here. I need more than one voice here. It just, yes, Starfield was amazing, and the procedurally generated, everything like that is so good, but it's so limited, like with small areas and that sort of thing. So it's a really hard decision. I'm sorry, I can't pick a side here.
Being only a few months out.
But I think I'm leaning to more like either upgrade engine so hard or just switch over to another engine. I'm more leaning to it nowadays, but something in my past say no, stick with the creation engine, just upgrade it. It's so back and forth.
Out from the release of Starfield, we may have our answer very soon. Maybe some of you out there that do know for a fact it's an engine issue are listening to this and cringing right now. And if that's the case, I do apologize. And I'll say I'm not one-sided in this dilemma. I'm just not going to jump on a bandwagon with an opinion about something I have little to no knowledge about. Moreover, this is such an argued topic, I feel it would have been impossible to make this kind of a video without addressing the elephant in the room. Bethesda could very well be lazy and all of the things people like to insult them with. I just don't see enough substantial evidence to support it when they are continuing to innovate while using the same engine. Finally, I feel I shouldn't have to say this at this point, but I am not a Bethesda apologist. In fact, I'm the opposite. I'm deeply critical of Bethesda's every move because I love their games, not because I'm a—
Yeah, their decisions over, like, what, since the release of Skyrim has been quite questionable, a lot of it. Especially when it comes to that Creation Club, I think it was. I support it in some ways because it does provide the modders with their money and that sort of thing. Absolutely, I'm for that. But also, there's a lot of back and forth with that, so I'm just not going to pick a side here. But yes, you should criticize Bethesda as much as possible because we want them to be better. We want them to make better games. We want them to be better than they were 10 years ago.
a hater. When the Fallout 76 fiasco took place, I was deeply saddened, knowing one of the most universally loved video game—
That's something I have to say was one of the biggest mistake ever, to launch that game so early, when it was clearly very visible to that game should not have been released at that time. It should have been in the oven for much longer.
Development companies fell for the corporate side of the games industry. I really want Bethesda to prove me wrong.
The scenery is so good. So good.
When I first started writing the script for this video, I didn't plan for it to be nearly as long as it turned out to be. I suppose the cause would be my intense passion for video making, combined with my intense passion for the Elder Scrolls. I love making videos almost more than anything else I do, because it's my creativity outlet. And I love the Elder Scrolls because—
And you're good at it, I will grant you that. You're a really good editor and narrator for explaining certain things here and there. I gotta give you that. Really impressive.
Because it's the series I've grown up with since being—
And hopefully you're going to utilize that as much as possible.
being a child, and it's always been my habitual outlet for stress or whatever was going on around me. And
oh, I can agree with that as well. But when I do in my hobbies like painting or modeling or just training with dogs and that sort of thing, that it's relieving so much anxiety and stress because of, you know, modern day. We have to think about so much: jobs, taxes, world politics and that sort of thing. I mean, it's just video gaming also in a way can relieve a lot of anxiety and stress. It did help me, for example, in schools, to just all of this. Screw school. I'm so glad I never again going to go to school.
And I guess if you were to take both of these passions of mine and blend them together, this video would be the product. This video was originally going to be quite typical, but the more I wrote, the more passionate I became, letting my thoughts spew out. It's really hard to properly end a video on this scale. I figure some closing thoughts are in order, considering the amount of content we just covered. It seems to me Bethesda has been acknowledging the criticism that's been thrown their way when talking about the watering down of their most recent titles. During an interview, Todd Howard claimed to be taking a step back and that they are applying older RPG mechanics to their newest IP, Starfield. If this indeed is the case, this would certainly reinforce my hope that I carry for Bethesda. And as for
they kinda did. Kinda. For example, if you want to be an explorer, like a proper explorer with constellations or something, it just didn't feel like an explorer kind of class, if you want to call it like that. I don't know, I feel like in a way Starfield wasn't really built for that, because it feels like you're more forced to do a lot of things. Like, do you want to be a ranger? Sure, here it is, but it's very boring. It doesn't really have too much content. Sure, it has a very long quest, but still after that, it's pretty much the same. It's kind of like the Dark Brotherhood in sort of way. After you've done the main quest and you only get receiving like assassinations, and they are all pretty much the same. It kind of gets very boring after some time. It's not a lot of variety to the quest, so it's at some point you're just going to be like, no, I don't want to do this anymore.
For the Elder Scrolls, they have some deep self-examination to do. Don't misunderstand me, however. Skyrim is far from being a bad game, and its sales numbers would reflect that. As a matter of fact, Skyrim is by far my most favorite game out of any, and it isn't even close. However, it almost seems odd writing that, because these past few years, I've grown more and more tired of playing it. If you asked me 10 years ago what my favorite game is, I would have said Skyrim. If you ask me now, I will still say Skyrim, which almost doesn't make any sense after everything I just said about it. But after making this video, I finally understand why. And that's because if it wasn't my most cherished game, what would be? It certainly wouldn't be anything else. If you were to tell me 12 years ago, I would be making an in-depth analysis video essay of Skyrim, I would have thought you were crazy. I think it's fitting then that I've made this video. I feel as if I've come full circle. But the truth is, nothing comes close to Skyrim in terms of scale. Nothing can beat it from my standpoint. Skyrim has established itself so deeply in my mind, it's almost untouchable. And that's because it is. No other game can immerse me as much as Skyrim can. No other game can let me roleplay as much as Skyrim can. No other game can distract me from all my real-world problems as much as Skyrim can, despite its considerably extensive amount of flaws. It's the most perfect, imperfect video game I've ever played. Nothing will ever beat role-playing as the Dragonborn, while climbing the throat of the world, attempting to deliver the Elder Scroll to Parthenax, only to look over and see all the snow-swept mountaintops that are jutting out of the world you're playing in, only to realize you've only been doing the main quest line, and your journey hasn't even truly begun.
A really amazing, good video. Really dwell into that explanation of why a little bit nostalgia, but also a lot of criticism for the game. So yeah, go and sub to Fusdorf. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly again. So yeah, go and sub to him. It was a really good video, a really good analytical video. Absolutely. He certainly has some skills when it comes to writing and analyzing and editing and that sort of thing. Absolutely. So it was a really good video. From 1 to 10, I would say a 9. Absolutely, it's a really good video. One of the very few that I watched when it comes to analyzing Skyrim. A lot of them are either way too long, like almost 11 or even 20 hours. I've seen some analytical analyst videos. This was in a way a good size one, like an hour long, even though it was 2 videos and that sort of thing. But or otherwise they were way too short, like 8 minutes or something. Like no. You need to go in deeper here. So yeah, really good video. Absolutely, go and sub to him. Absolutely. Hope you all like my reaction to it. See you all later for whatever comes next. It's probably going to be finally my new anime figurine that I got. I'm going to go and catch it, go and pick it up on the deliver stuff, whatever, the postal office and that sort of thing. It's pretty close. So I'm probably going to upload it later, maybe a day or something. Anyway, see you all later for whatever comes next. Goodbye.